If you had told me a few years ago that one day I'd build my own dream bike, there's no way I would have believed you. Until recently, I knew very little about bikes and definitely didn't think I could ever build one. I didn't really have very much experience building anything. But after the last few years of traveling around the world by bike and trying different bike setups, I realized that nothing I was riding really fit exactly what I wanted. Plus, I really hated derailleurs. So I decided to try and build my dream bike, a Rohloff Salsa Fargo. So that's what this video is about. Come along as I try and build a bike and learn a ton in the process. At the end, I'll share how the bike has worked out, what I like and don't like about the Rohloff, and what I'd wish I'd done differently. The story starts way back around the winter solstice. Talking to a camera, which is always weird.
Do you need a drink?
Yeah, I need a drink.
Cheers.
This is my bike. One thing I forgot to say is that I bought the Fargo as a complete bike off Craigslist. It right now has the stock 1x drivetrain on it, and I want to change it to a Rohloff. And so I got my Rohloff in the mail. It's already laced into a wheel. I got it off of eBay. Why did I get this Rohloff wheel? Derailleurs are really beautiful and efficient machines, and they've been running bikes for over 100 years. But I feel like every bike that I've had, the derailleur is like constantly going out of alignment. I decided that I would try a Rohloff hub, which is an internally geared hub. Supposedly they shift perfectly every time. They don't really take any maintenance. You just have to change the oil every 5,000 miles. So I figured I would try it. It's a little bit of investment, but now I have to figure out how to put it on my bike, which is an intimidating process because I have to change both the brake levers and the crank. And these are things that I've never done before. So we'll see how it goes. First order of business is read the manual. It's in German. Rohloffs are made in Germany, and there isn't a whole lot of information about them in English. So I took a couple days to scour the internet and try and figure out everything I could about them. And so now I have to put it on the bike. I also am going to change it to a flat bar, and so it's a whole process where I need to basically strip almost everything off the bike and then put it all back on. So we're gonna try that. Ooh, okay. First, the rack comes off. This is a zip tie cutter.
Well, it's a flush cut wire cutter.
But in these parts, we call it a zip tie cutter. Ooh, fancy. I think the next thing is to take off the handlebars. There you are. Then it was time to take the crank off, which was harder than we expected.
Yeah, maybe Park Tools.
It's time for the masters.
Calvin Jones here, Park Tool Company.
Turns out it was just on there really tight. Did you get it?
Yep, it's a good feeling.
That doesn't look like it's doing anything, does it?
Not really.
Well, everything's off the bike, but we figured out that we probably need a new bottom bracket, so we're gonna take that off too.
I don't think I have a different bottom bracket tool.
We don't have the right tool, so I'm gonna take it to the bike shop. It's day 2. You might hear some weird sounds. It's because Chris has just come home, and that means that Leo is finally allowed to chew on his bone. This is a rule that he's made for himself. He makes his own rules. I went to the bike shop today and I bought a new bottom bracket, and then I came home and I took out, well, they helped me get the bottom bracket out. The inside is full of some sort of unidentifiable dust or rust, or a combination of the two. How do you think that much sand gets in there?
I think some of it is rust.
I don't think it could be that much rust. Like, I wouldn't have a bike frame anymore if all of that was rust. Like, put your finger in it.
Really fine, sticky sand, maybe.
We're gonna clean that out and then figure out what the next step is. Before I brought it to the bike shop, I had also attached my new handlebars. I got denim bars, which are kind of like crazy bars, but the hoods are closer together, which is what I prefer. Maybe a vacuum? We're doing WD-40 and steel wool to get the rust out of the inside of the bottom bracket. Okay, so it's the next day and I have a cold, but we're gonna keep working on the bike. So apparently the cause of rust in bottom brackets is, well, one of them could be that the seat post isn't greased, so I decided to take off the seat post. And yeah, there's not very much grease in there. I'm not sure if there's any grease on there. And it goes all the way in because I'm short. Now we're putting lube on the inside of the bottom bracket so that this rust maybe won't happen as quickly. Now I gotta figure out how to put in the bottom bracket. I don't think that's right. Maybe we try the other one first. When I started trying to put the wheel back on the bike, I realized that I had accidentally bought the through axle version instead of the quick release version of the Rohloff hub. I hadn't actually bought the through axle version, I had bought the threaded spindle version, but that was still different than the quick release that I had originally intended. So, I have to figure that out. And if I can even use it, or if I have to sell it, and keep looking for another hub. What has happened since the last time I talked? Oh, I mentioned that I thought maybe I had bought the wrong Rohloff hub, and luckily it's not an unsolvable problem. The Salsa has a special system where you can change the dropouts to fit all sorts of different rear ends. Got a couple of those, but they're gonna come in the mail, so it's in a few days. So for now, we are doing brakes, and I have my old wheel back on the bike just to be able to do some adjusting. I also reattached the crank. According to the official Rohloff website, the best chain line for a Rohloff is 57 millimeters, which is about the same as the outside chainring on a triple crankset. So that's what I did. I bought a triple crankset and I put a 36 tooth chainring on the outside. And that gave me the right chain line and good gear ratios. So on my bottom end, I have 18.2 and on my top end, I have 95.5. Okay, it's a few days later and I finally got the little pieces of metal that I think I need to make my bike work. So they have an alternator plate for a Rohloff, and we are gonna see if it works. Woo! It's cool. Okay, so the issue that I have now is that the Rohloff needs to go in a 135 millimeter dropout. My bike is set up for 148. These are the alternator plates. This is my brake. That's an alternator plate, left alternator plate. I have a reduction plate that goes in between the frame and this alternator plate, one on either side. That should reduce it by 6 millimeters apparently. And then this left dropout plate gets replaced by this Rohloff dropout plate. So that it has a space for the mech to go. I hope that this works. It seems like it works. Like that's how it's gonna go on. Okay, can I show you my current problem? These are all the bolts that came with the kit. This is the instructions for how to put it together. You can see that they show you exactly which bolt is supposed to go to which spot, but each one is slightly different, and I can't really tell which of those are which things, so I'm gonna have to measure them. This thing says that this little screw is like 27 or 28. I'm supposed to be looking for a 25, but that's the shortest one I have, so I'm guessing it's nominal. Fun fact, you measure bolts by the thread length. I just learned that. This is my 25 millimeter bolt. Okay. That's there, but then what holds it on? Again, I'm missing something. All right, friends, I'm bad at reading diagrams. Finally, I think I might have gotten this right. Let's see. We have these two pieces. We have this thing. This is the bolt that goes on it. And then it goes in this side, the other side. All right. That is what it is supposed to look like. Screws go in like they came out on the outside of the bike. Now for this side, I need to take the brake connector off and then put it onto my Rohloff. I'm gonna take this screw out too. It's loose enough for the rest of this process. Brakes back on. I think it's working. This is so exciting. I had this little bit wrong. There's a little knob that sticks off of the plate attached to the Rohloff, and that needs to be in this slot. So I just fixed that. And now I'm adding the spacer screws that keep the alternator plate where you want them to be. So this is day something of working on my bike. I'm not really sure how long I've been doing this, a couple weeks now. I have the chain on, and the next step is just to change the oil and maybe change a few things with the fit. And then it should be good to go. Done. So after adjusting the seat like you do on any new bike and putting on a slightly shorter stem to adjust for the flat bar geometry, my bike was all set to go. And I'm happy to report that the bike ride's great. And as far as the Rohloff, I freaking love it. The first time Chris and I went for a bike ride after I built this bike, his front derailleur seized up and he had to bike 10 miles with only one gear. And I'm just so glad that I'd never have to worry about that ever again. I love never having to adjust a derailleur. I love that I can shift from 14th gear to first gear at a stop sign without moving. I love how smooth the gears shift. I love that since the hub is bigger, the spokes are shorter, which means my rear wheel is really strong. And I love that the chain doesn't wear out as quickly because it doesn't have to shift between chain rings. A few of the things that I don't love or I just had to get used to is you're never really supposed to shift when you're under load, but the Rohloff won't let you. It feels like you're trying to pedal into a brick wall. So it took me a little while to get the hang of not shifting when I needed to pedal really hard, but now that it's been a few months, I've gotten used to it and I never really think about it anymore. So if that's something you're worried about with the Rohloff, I wouldn't let it stop you. Also, gears 1 through 7 make a slight whirring sound and you can also feel it a little bit. And that's normal for a Rohloff and it's just something that you kind of get used to, and now I don't ever think about it anymore. Finally, my rear wheel is pretty heavy. It's about 1.5 pounds heavier than a 1x derailleur, but I'm not really going for a featherlight bike. I'm really looking for a bike that can take me everywhere and is really durable and will last a long time being beat around in buses and things like that. So I'm really happy with this bike as I've built it, and I'm really excited to see where it takes me. So thank you and happy trails.